Yeah, I remember Tony says this all the time, right? Most people, what they do is they major in minor things.
Hmm.
Major in minor things. What that means is they're stressed out about things that doesn't really matter in life, right? Just like you said, what's the worst case scenario? Like we die. But if we're not dead, then what else can we do, right? And sort of, I know it's a lot easier said than done. I totally get it. I've
Hmm.
been there before. Like we wallow on the problem and we're like, oh, poor me. And then we play this victim role, like, God, why do you give me all these things? Like, why do you have all these troubles in my life and things like that? Well, maybe it's meant for you to something. So, what is the new meaning that you talked about, right? So, maybe it's like maybe God is giving us an opportunity to strengthen our muscle. Because when we build our muscle, it's not the first or second rep that we lift, it's really the one we can't lift anymore. Like, I can't do these bicep curls anymore. That's when we grow. And that's where the magic happens, right? So, I love everything you talked about. So, what are some of the books you recommend reading? I mean, besides Tony's book or attending Tony's seminars, or what do you do to have continue with your growth mindset?
Yeah, so in terms of my personal growth, I was definitely interested, as a kid of so-called becoming rich, right? And so I would learn through personal finance books. I picked up Rich Dad, Poor Dad probably in my teens. I read, I think, The Millionaire Next Door. That was an interesting one to learn about literally the demographics of millionaires and what they look like, what they own. It's not necessarily what you think, right? It's like people with the flashy cars and all these things are a lot of times not the actual millionaires that you're seeing in media, right? They could just be like the guy down the street in shorts and flip-flops. That's actually kind of me. I'm like in shorts and flip-flops all the time. No one would ever guess my net worth, so to speak. And so The Millionaire Next Door is a great book because he just kind of breaks it down in very statistical data for the people that like analytics. And so I remember that one. But the Rich Dad Poor Dad series is great as a starting point because it helps you to start changing some of your beliefs of what's possible. Once you kind of shift some of those beliefs that we talked about earlier, if you believe you can achieve becoming a millionaire or multimillionaire or beyond, then all of a sudden you're going to take different action, right? And as soon as you take different action, you're going to get different results. And depending on the result that you get, you can keep tweaking it till, you want to refine it to do. But if you don't believe in the first place, you're not even going to get started. So I think, again, the ideal situation is that you first work in the mindset, like you said, Alan, and parents, for your kids and even for yourself as you're growing, individually, being able to share that journey with your kids and giving them opportunities to explore, even outside of our own realms of what we think is possible. I think that's a great opportunity for us as parents.
Yeah, I love it. And I remember as you're talking about like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? So one of the things he talked about is having passive income. So one of the things I try to instill knowledge and mindset with my daughter is that, hey, so one day I drove by my investment property and I asked my daughter, and can you make money while you're sleeping? She goes, no, Dad, you cannot make money while you're sleeping. Like, what do you mean? So that means you have to go to school, you have to go to work. So basically everything she talked about was active income, right? Money doesn't work for you. Like you have to work for the money. I'm like, she's 6 years old at the time. I didn't teach her that. Like, how did she come up with that? The belief system. It's really interesting. So I started teaching her a little bit about Rich Dad, Poor Dad theories, like invest in houses, you can rent them out, and then, you can make money while you're sleeping. She's like, no, you can't do that. That's too easy. Right. So it's really about the mindset, because it's all about if you have that mindset flip or that switch, oh my gosh, things could be very different. I'm really curious, what are some of your daily practices or habits that you maintain to have this rich and abundant life?
Yeah, so my current day practices is I typically try to spend some time early in the morning. I'd say I'm not 100%, but a lot of times I'm spending time priming. This is something that Tony, where we're really centering ourselves, shifting our physiology, shifting our focus, and finding a lot of gratitude. Really quickly, I will say that back to rich life, right? If you can't find gratitude in your current life as is, no matter how much money that you have, your life will never be rich. It's just a fact. And when you start, I think for me, some of that has to do with, I'll do some meditation, might be some prayer, but really being able to enjoy the moments that I've had in the past, I have in the present, and the ones that I'm looking forward in the future. Bringing all those together really sets you up for like a pretty powerful day, because once you are done priming, then all of a sudden you just like resonate. You're like, oh my gosh, life is just so beautiful. Life is wonderful, right? I'm ready to accomplish whatever I need to accomplish, and life doesn't have to be that hard. Now, contrast this with most people do, and I'm guilty of this too. I didn't do this my entire life. Contrast this with what most people do is you wake up and you check your phone, and immediately you start getting bombarded with other people's issues, other people's problems. Maybe it's something from work, maybe it's someone having an issue. The thing is that we're allowing this into our perception. We're allowing this into our focus. And all of a sudden, we'd like to call this the triad, right? We're breaking our own triad. We're breaking our focus and what we're able to start our day off in. And so it's going to put us into an energetic state that, maybe you get a great email that's like makes you super happy, but you're leaving it up to chance, right? And most of the time, I'm going to say 9 out of 10 times, right? It's probably something that's like, oh, I need this, I need that, right? And so it's putting you at a disadvantage from the get-go. So I think one one of the best practices is really taking some time, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it may be, just to center yourself, find gratitude, set your intentions for the day, and then kind of go off from there. I think that's one of the best habits that I've ever picked up, Allan. And I will say that I didn't necessarily do some of this even as I was accumulating, my wealth or whatnot. But what I did do, it wasn't necessarily in the morning. I would still always have a practice of prayer at the end of the night and being appreciative and thankful for the things that I did have. So again, back to that gratitude and feeling that you're already wealthy.
Yeah, and that's very powerful, because when you are in a gratitude state, right, it makes us feel like it turns whatever we have is enough, right? And as you're talking about this, I'm kind of reflecting on my own life, because a lot of times people can complain about everything and anything. Traffic sucks, the food sucks, the food I order, like, what is this, all that stuff. We can complain about anything. But if you ever get a chance to travel to like third world country, like, you'll quickly learn you have a pretty good life, right? If you've ever been to parts of India or parts of like China, it's pretty bad out there. There's certain parts, right? And I have witnesses. I'm like, the fact that we have something like clear, like clean water, like good air to breathe without that smog, we're already taking a lot of that for granted, right? So you're nodding your head because I think you know what I'm talking about. But most people don't have that juxtaposition of comparing and contrast. The other thing I want to talk to you more about is you do have an acronym, and it's FIRE. Can you share with us your secret about FIRE?
Yeah, so listeners, this acronym FIRE stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And this is a concept that has become popularized in the media as a way to, I think, essentially live your life as a goal in order to reach this point of FIRE. And the whole idea with this is that the biggest key to this acronym is the financial independence. And all that means is that you have built up enough wealth or critical mass where you have enough passive income coming off of that critical mass, or maybe you have some rental houses, whatever it may be, to pay for all of your necessities, your mortgage, your rent, your food, your utilities, your taxes. Because once all of those things are taken care of and you don't have to actively work for money, just as Allan said, right? He was asking his daughter, right? Most people think that you have to actively work for money. And while that might be true in the beginning of your career, you can take time to invest it into things like stocks, equities, businesses, or real estate, or all three. I like all three, actually. And I call these the FIRE accelerators. These are things that help you to get to FIRE faster. But if you're intentional with investing in these areas, you can then create this passive income. And let me just give you a really quick sample of what passive income is. Let's just take a savings account. Right now, you can get about 5% on your savings account. So let's just say you put $1,000 into your savings account and you get a 5% rate, right? So you're going to get about $50 over the year. And next year, you're going to have $1,050 to earn interest on, right? So it keeps building on each other. And even though 5% doesn't sound like a lot, there's this law of compounding that allows your money to grow over time, not just in a linear fashion, meaning that in a straight line. It actually is in an exponential fashion, meaning that once you hit a certain amount, you start to accelerate the amount of money that's building on the amount of money that you already have. And so I definitely encourage you to go look about the compounding effect, because this is specifically what allows people to build wealth and to achieve FIRE in their early years. I'm no different, right? I was able to build a business. I was able to take some of those earnings and put them into stocks and equities. And then I eventually purchased real estate, eventually exited the business, bought more real estate. And so I use all three of these different buckets to then allow me to, build this critical mass. So today I don't have to work, and I do still work, just as a side note, because for me, retire early doesn't mean sitting on the beach, right? Actually, I spent a year just kind of doing a bunch of bucket list stuff, having fun. But the challenge with that is that it gets boring after a while. So anyway, side note, maybe we'll pick up that later. But point being is that you have the option, right? If you find a career that you actually would I encourage people not to retire early, right? Financial independence is more the important part of this formula for FIRE. And when you achieve that, you just have this huge weight lifted off your shoulders, because then it's you're working because you get to and because you want to, versus if you have to. And that's ultimately what FIRE is trying to optimize, is to give you the ultimate freedom to choose what you want to do with your time. It's something that, again, the reason why I wrote the book, The FIRE Planner, is because I want more people to know about this, because most people think you have to just live your whole life working for income, active income, and that's actually not true.
Live purposely, love passionately, and be the most remarkable parent you're meant to be. We'll see you future sessions.